The Arctic is a pure, flawless crystal world. Here, there are endless glaciers and snowfields. Around 600,000 years ago, brown bears living in high-latitude areas began migrating north. They explored the Arctic region. After a long period of adaptation, they gradually evolved into a distinct species, the polar bear. Polar bears carry a substantial amount of fat in their bodies, allowing them to survive for months without eating. Their fur protects them from extreme cold weather. Polar bears survive by hunting seals. Wherever there are seals, you will find them. In the Svalbard Islands in northern Norway, two female bears each gave birth to cubs. One of them gave birth to a single cub in secret, while the other, named Eva, had twins. Both mothers were struggling to raise their cubs, each taking a completely different path to survival. Hello, everyone. I'm Ectoplasm Enigma. You're watching episode 51 of The Lad of All Things. In this episode, we'll talk about the king of the polar regions, the polar bear. Betty trudged through the snow with her cub. She chose the difficult path to avoid the males wandering below. Some males, seeking to mate with females, will cruelly kill the mother bear's cubs. Only then will the female bear enter estrus. So, to protect their cubs, mother bears keep their distance from males. For the cubs, this is a harsh trial. The deep snow makes it hard for them to walk. The mother bear gently encourages her cubs, sometimes using her body as a shield, to prevent them from getting hurt. The mother bear must carefully protect them to ensure their survival in the harsh Arctic environment. Meanwhile, another mother bear, Eva, pokes her head out of the snow den. Soon after, her twin cubs follow her out. They have been in the den for half a year, and now the mother bear will lead them on a journey of survival. Spring is slowly approaching. The Arctic is hit by a snowstorm. There are no trees on this island. A tree trunk drifting from afar becomes a toy for the cubs. Reindeer are struggling to find food amidst the snowstorm. Besides polar bears, they are the only large mammals here. The storm is subsiding. Eva and her twins head toward the shore. By the coast, a young male bear catches a seal. He feasts on it, enjoying the nutritious fat. Not long after, only the seal's bones remain. The male bear looks for a place to take a nap. The hungry mother bear seizes this rare opportunity. Polar bears mainly rely on their sense of smell to find food. They can even detect the scent of fresh meat from dozens of kilometers away. Betty has been hiding in a cave for half a year without eating. At this moment, he finally got to eat the leftovers. Meanwhile, the male bear only thinks about hunting and mating every day. On this day, the male bear had a stroke of luck. While wandering in the snow, he encountered a lone female bear. However, if he wants to win her over, he will need to work hard, because the female bear likes to play hard to get, feigning reluctance but not really resisting. The male bear must be strong and robust. He also needs to have a lot of patience. The female bear circles around in the snow several times. This is mainly to test his stamina. Then the female bear climbs up a steep snow slope. This is primarily to test the flexibility of her future mate. This really stumps the male bear. He tried for a long time, but couldn't climb up. Why is it so hard to find a wife? The exhausted male bear lay down in the snow, ready to give up. Clearly, the female bear didn't like being ignored. She climbed back down the snow slope, trying to reignite the male bear's passion. Her movements became more and more suggestive, increasingly seductive. The male bear couldn't help but take another look at her. His passion was rekindled once more. "All right, I guess I'll indulge you a little longer." After the prelude of courtship, the two bears finally sealed their love with a kiss. Their romance will last for about 3 weeks. Afterwards, the male bear will leave without a trace. All the responsibilities of raising the cubs will fall on the female bear. Betty and Eva became bear mothers in this way. The Arctic ice cap surrounds the Svalbard archipelago. As global warming continues, life for polar bears is becoming increasingly difficult. The glaciers are melting and collapsing. Rising sea levels, along with higher temperatures, have caused large-scale cracks in the Arctic ice cap. The fractured sea ice drifts along with the ocean currents. Wherever the sea ice goes, the seals will follow. Where the seals go, the polar bears will chase after them. This is how polar bears have survived for generations. However, Betty took a detour to protect her cubs. By the time they reached the shore, they were shocked. The sea ice had already drifted away, disappearing completely. The mother and cubs were trapped on the island. They were about to face a harsh survival test. Meanwhile, Eva's family was much luckier. At the last moment, they caught a ride on a drifting sea ice raft. The distance between the ice rafts was short, so they could easily hop from one to another. After reaching land, they could roll in the snow to dry off the water droplets on their bodies. Seals usually hunt fish in the water. When tired, they will crawl onto the sea ice to rest. This is also the best time for polar bears to hunt. Of course, seals are always on high alert. This poses a great challenge to the polar bear's stealth skills. Eva spotted a seal resting close to the shore. She quietly approached like a piece of floating ice. Then she hid behind the coast, observing the seal's location. Next, she dived below the ice surface, quietly sneaking around to the back of the seal. The seal looked around warily, as if sensing something was wrong. In a critical moment, Eva launched her killing move. However, her luck was just as bad. A tiny mistake caused all her efforts to go to waste. The delicious prey slipped away just like that. In comparison, Betty and her cubs were in an even worse situation. They were trapped on an island, about to face a long period of starvation. Betty hadn't eaten in 6 months in order to reproduce. At this moment, she urgently needed to find some food. She dove into the water near the shore to search for food and finally found some seaweed. Although it wasn't a tasty treat, at least it could fill her stomach. Her feet kicked in the water, almost like she was performing ballet. It looked quite funny. The Arctic terns were in their breeding season. They were nesting and laying eggs in the cracks of the coastal rocks. This gave Betty and her cubs a glimmer of hope. However, these birds were not going to sit idly by. The entire flock launched wave after wave of aerial attacks on Betty. Unable to endure it, she left with her cubs after getting a little bit of food. As summer arrived, the temperature rose above freezing. The ice caps melted and became smaller. Eva led her twins toward a larger coastal area. Because of the abundant food, the twins were growing quickly. Their size was nearly half that of their mother. Not far away, a male bear had killed a seal. After filling his stomach, he buried the rest of the food. Once the male bear left, Eva led her cubs over to scavenge. Although they were living off scraps, at least they could eat some meat. Unexpectedly, the male bear soon returned. This was a huge threat to them. To protect her cubs, Eva prepared to fight to the death. The male bear didn't want to risk a confrontation with an angry mother. In the end, Eva and her cubs retreated unharmed. The male bear reclaimed his food. Returning to the Svalbard Islands, Betty and her cubs, who were trapped on the island with no hope of survival, unexpectedly had a stroke of luck. A whale weighing several tons washed ashore. The whale's corpse became a feast for the polar bears. They worked hard, tearing into the flesh and fat. Just as they were eating happily, a massive adult male bear descended from the distant hillside. The other polar bears quickly fled upon seeing him. One clever 2-year-old polar bear tried to sneak back, quietly returning to nibble on the prime meat. However, the adult male likes to monopolize food and hates being challenged by others for his authority. He begins to chase after the young male bear, exuding a murderous aura. Danger lurks everywhere. The young polar bear doesn't dare turn his back. The male could easily kill him. But in the end, the male only gave him a light punishment and spared his life. Now it's time for the male to enjoy the delicious meal alone. The polar bears trapped on the island for the whole summer will eat all the prime meat. By the time Betty and her cubs discover the whale, only the massive white skeleton remains. Meanwhile, Eva and her cubs have had an easier time surviving in the ambush zone, since they can still hunt seals. At this moment, a seal is lying comfortably on the beach. Eva decides to prepare a big meal for her cubs. She lets out a low growl, telling the twins to stay put. The key to hunting success lies in launching a surprise attack. Eva is very smart. She enters the water backwards. This way, she can minimize any noise she might make. However, the two cubs aren't making things easy for her. They make a ruckus while playing not far away. The seal, startled, quickly dives into the water. Eva's hunting plan ends in failure. In the ever-changing icy world, it can sometimes take several days to find a polar bear. The vast shoreline can sometimes make them feel lonely. Even though most of them are solitary, they do enjoy socializing. Even after many years, they can still recognize each other by scent. 3 male bears met and shared a feast together. The snow camera tried to get closer for a better view, which piqued the curiosity of one young male. The camera was soon knocked over by him. The scientists had no choice but to deploy the snowball camera. The rolling snowball sparked great interest in the polar bears. Soon, they teamed up to play a soccer game. Technically speaking, they're much better than the national soccer team. In the end, the snowball camera heroically met its demise. It was crushed into by a playful polar bear. Our view now returns to the Svalbard Islands. Betty and her cubs are still struggling to find food. Due to prolonged starvation, they're malnourished. Betty's body fat has been completely depleted. Her cub looks particularly small. He's about the same age as the twins, but he's only half their size. The baby, unable to bear the hunger, went to nibble on some grass on the hillside. Though it's not very nutritious, it's enough to fill his stomach for now. Polar bears evolved from brown bears, and brown bears are omnivores. So, polar bears eating grass is a kind of throwback behavior in times of necessity. With the greenhouse gases running rampant, The temperature in the Svalbard archipelago has reached as high as 6 degrees Celsius. Almost all the glaciers here have melted. Polar bears have adapted to cold environments. They only feel comfortable when they are immersed in icy water. Otherwise, they could easily suffer from heat stroke. The ice floes are becoming thinner and thinner. This has caused great trouble for Eva's family. Walking on them is almost like walking on a tightrope. The ice floes are like floating lifeboats. Eva must make up her mind to continue heading north with her twins, to find a larger place to live. But the currents and winds are not in their favor. The twins are too young, and long-distance swimming is extremely dangerous for them, but they have no other way out now. They must take a risk and gamble for survival. Eva leaps into the water to lead the way. The twins closely follow their mother. A mother bear can swim 80 kilometers or even farther. But the cub's stamina is limited. They might drown in the sea if things go wrong. So this is a life or death test for the twins. They swam for a long time in the vast coastal waters. The cub's strength was completely exhausted. One instinctively rested his head on the sister twin's back. But the sister was also running out of energy. Fortunately, hope was just ahead. No matter what, they couldn't give up. In the end, they gave it their all and made it to shore, successfully reaching the largest ice sheet in the Arctic. Eva could finally rest for a while. She slowly lay down on the snow. The twins greedily suckled the sweet milk. After enduring so many hardships, they had finally reached the polar bear paradise. Meanwhile, Betty and her cub also saw the dawn of life. Betty, to feed her cub with milk, had to gnaw on the hard whale bones. She soon discovered that a male bear had dived underwater to eat meat. This was like a godsend for her. After the male bear left, she seized the opportunity to dive underwater. It is said that all things thrive after the fall of the iching. The whale's carcass not only fed the fish and shrimp, but also allowed the polar bears trapped here to survive. Betty pulled up a piece of fine meat. She ate some to restore her energy. Then she chewed some meat into smaller bits to feed her cub. After eating their fill, they walked north along the hillside. It's now September. The sea won't freeze over until 2 months from now. But Betty's family can't wait that long. They, too, must take a risk and gamble for survival. A nice rainbow appeared where the sea meets the sky. It was a scene created by the ice reflecting the sunlight. Betty led her cub toward the direction of the rainbow. A seal was swimming nearby the ice floe. It was confident, because polar bears can't catch it in the water. Finally, the mother and cub successfully climbed onto the ice floe. Betty had endured countless hardships, but she had finally brought her cub to safety. For the first time in months, they had fresh food to eat. Both Betty and Eva are great mother bears. To nurture their cubs, they would endure any hardship and never give up. How is that any different from human mothers?